celebrate the independence of Mexico on September 16th, which is 16 de septiembre. And to celebrate and learn more about the history and culture of Mexico, I'm going to read you one of the most famous legends to come from the Mexican culture, and it is called The Princess and the Warrior. It was written by Duncan Tonatiuh, who is also a very important Mexican-American children's author. And so without further ado, here is the story of the princess and the warrior. Once upon a time, there lived a kind and beautiful princess named Itza. Even though she was the daughter of an emperor, she loved to spend time with the people who grew corn in the milpas. She liked to teach them poetry, or flor y canto. Milpas are the corn that you see there, and flor y canto is the poetry that was sung by all of Itza's people. As you can see, the author and illustrator Duncan likes to draw his characters in profile, which means that they look to the side and you can only see the side of their faces. That is because he kind of copied the way that the Aztecs and the Mayans drew on their pyramids, and in their records they drew profiles, and so he copied that style. And so let's see what happens with Itza, who was the daughter of an emperor, right? But even though she was a daughter of an emperor, she really liked to be with the people. Suitors traveled from distant lands to woo her. They presented her with rare and lavish, that means like fancy, gifts, just such as quetzal feathers and turquoise necklaces. Quetzal feathers quetzal is a very beautiful bird that lives in Mexico and parts of Central America. The suitors means that they were young men who wanted to come and marry her. So they came to try and see if they could marry Itza. And they came from all over the land with their gifts, and they would all say the same thing. You are the most beautiful maiden in the land. Marry me, princess, and you will live in my luxurious palace. You won't have to spend time in the fields ever again. No, thank you, Itza would reply. She was not interested in any of the suitors or their gifts. One day, a warrior named Popoca came to see her. Princess, I know you have a kind and beautiful heart, for I have seen you teaching floricanto to the villagers in the milpas. I don't have expensive gifts to offer, but if you marry me, I promise that I will love you for who you are. I will stay by your side no matter what, as long as Tonatiuh rises. Tonatiuh is the sun. It's the name for the sun. And as long as the sensotle bird sings. Popoca's words were music to Itza's ears. She could hear the honesty in his voice, and she fell in love with him. The emperor did not want his daughter to marry a mere soldier. He wanted her to marry a wealthy and powerful Tlatoani ruler, but he knew that Popoca was the best and bravest warrior in his kingdom. The emperor and his people had been at war with Jaguar Claw, the Tlatoani of a neighboring land, for years, and there seemed to be no end in sight to this war. So he called Popoca to him. Popoca, the emperor said. "If you defeat Jaguar Claw once and for all, I will let you marry my daughter, Itza." Popoka and Itza were overjoyed. Popoka gathered his most courageous men and marched to war. Popoka fought numerous battles. He and his men were injured and almost defeated many times. But when the end seemed near, Popoka would always think of Itza, waiting for his return. He would defend himself with his chimayi, attack with his macahuitl, and inspire his men to fight with even more courage than before. So as you can see, the author put different words from the Aztec language in his writing. And so Popoka, it says he would defend himself with his chimayi. So what do you defend yourself with? Maybe that means shield. And attack with his macahuitl. So what do you think the macahuitl is? Maybe a spear or the bow and arrow, right? Let's see. So they're battling, and he does not want to lose because he might lose his love, right? He might lose Itza. Let me move myself. There we go. Slowly, the tide turned, and Popoka saw his men Popoka and his men began winning battles. It was clear that they would soon defeat Jaguar Claw. And so as you can see, Jaguar Claw, it looks like, wow. It's all the men, all the warriors dressed like jaguars. I think Jaguar Claw might be the guy wearing the black armor. Realizing this, Jaguar Claw devised a plan to steal from Popoka what the warrior cherished most. He bribed one of Popoka's personal messengers. Bribed is when he gave him money to do something for him. And this is what he said. He said, "Tell Itza that Popoka has been killed and offer her this potion. Oktli, to soothe her grief." So he's asking this messenger to lie to Itza and lie and say that Popoka has died. And so she's going to think that he died. Oh my goodness. "Everything is lost, princess," the messenger said sadly when he arrived at the palace. "Popoka and his men fought bravely, but they were defeated and killed." "No, that cannot be," cried Itza. She locked herself in her chamber, that's like her bedroom, and wept and refused to eat or speak with anyone. Oh, she was so sad and very depressed because she didn't want to eat or speak about having lost Popoka. But we know, the readers know, us, that that's not true. But she thinks that. That night, the messenger came to her room. "I know your heart is shattered as if it were made of obsidian glass," he said. "But take this drink, princess. It will help ease your grief." And she drank it. She took the potion and drank it all, lying down on her petlatl, which is that rug right there. And she fell into a deep sleep. The next day, before night fell and the first Citlali appeared in the sky. What do you think Citlali is? It appeared in the sky. It means star. The next day, before night fell and the first Citlali appeared in the sky, Popoca defeated Jaguar Claw. Unaware of the lies the messenger had told, the great warrior and his troops marched back to the palace in triumph. They were ready to share the good news with the princess and the emperor. And so Popoca thinks he's going to marry Itza because he won the battle. Let's see what happens next. But when they arrived, they were met with disbelief. Popoca, said the emperor, one of your messengers told us that you were dead. Itza was heartbroken. She took a special okli to ease her pain, and now we cannot wake her. This can't be true, said Popoca. Itza, my beautiful princess, has to awaken. He ran to her chamber. He kissed her and held her in his arms. He called out her name over and over. But Itza did not wake up. Cool air will surely revive her, Popoca told the emperor. And he carried Itza through the throngs of villagers who wept as they passed the milpas, and all through the night to the top of a tepetle. Tepetle. What do you think a tepetle is? He passed the milpas all through the night to the top of a, well, it looks like maybe the top of a mountain or a hill. He laid her on a xochitl bed. I think xochitls are flowers. He laid her on a flower bed. That makes sense. He knelt down beside her. The cool mountain air soon turned to snow, but still the princess did not wake up. And Popoca refused to move. He stayed next to Itza, just as he had promised when he first met her. As long as Tonatiuh rises, remember Tonatiuh is the sun, as long as the sensotle bird sings, he refused to move, and he stayed, and he stayed, and he stayed, and the seasons came and went. And in time, where once there was a princess with her true love by her side, two volcanoes emerged. One is known as Iztaccíhuatl, or sleeping woman. The other is known as Popocatépetl, or Smoky Mountain. Itza continues to sleep, but Popocatépetl spews ashes and smoke from time to time, as if attempting to wake his sleeping princess. And that is the end of the story. And so through his very deep love for her, he waited and waited and waited until they finally just turned into a mountain and a volcano. And so now, as the legend has it, the mountain and the volcano are still there in Mexico. And the legend is that the story that I told you is why that volcano and that a mountain are still there. So the legend of the Princess and the Warrior is an origin story. It's an origin story created by the Aztec and the Maya people. It's the Aztec, actually. The Aztec people to the origin of that mountain and that volcano. This legend came from that. And so I hope you enjoyed the story. It's a love story. It's a beautiful love story. Like I said, it came from the Mexican mythology of the Aztec people. And since we are celebrating independence of Mexico, we celebrate and share this wonderful legend, this wonderful love story of the Princess and the Warrior by Duncan Tonatiuh. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you feel like you learned a little bit about Mexican culture today, which is such an important part of the history of our country as well. So since story time is over, I will see you next time.